I used to believe in fairy tales, in slow dances, whispered promises, and the kind of love that makes your heart feel like home. And for a brief moment, I thought I had it all. My name is Claire, and 10 days after marrying the man I thought was my forever, I found out he already had a wife and a daughter in another state. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about what happens when two women realize they were never the crazy ones, just the ones brave enough to face the truth. If you've ever been lied to, if you've ever rebuilt yourself from nothing, this story is for you. And if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe, because sometimes the most powerful revenge is finally choosing yourself. They say the first 10 days after your wedding are the most magical. They're not wrong. In those 10 days, you wake up with the soft realization that someone chose you. Not for a date, not for a phase, not for the season, but for life. I remember waking up next to Ethan, sunlight spilling across our sheets, his hand always resting somewhere gently on my skin, my hip, my back, sometimes my hair. He always woke before me, always looked at me like I was the best thing he'd ever found. And for a while, I believed I was. I'm Claire, by the way. Claire Thompson. I used to believe in stories that started like fairy tales. That you meet a man, fall in love, make vows, wear white, and ride into the sunset. And for 10 days, I thought I had it. 10 days. That's all it took to unravel everything I thought I knew about the man I married. The wedding was on a Saturday afternoon in late May. The air smelled like lilacs and fresh beginnings. It was small, just friends, some close family, and a rented garden venue with ivy-covered arches and those soft string lights people use in Pinterest weddings. I wore my mother's pearl earrings and a lace dress that cinched gently at the waist. Not too dramatic, just enough. Ethan looked like he stepped out of a movie, tall, structured, with the kind of calm confidence that made people instinctively trust him. His hands were steady when he held mine. His voice didn't even waver when he said, "I will." Everyone told me how lucky I was, and I agreed. We danced under the stars, barefoot after my heels started to ache. He whispered things like, "I still can't believe you're my wife, and I'm going to make you so happy, Claire." I remember thinking, this is it. This is the feeling people talk about, the safety, the knowing. God, how I wish I could freeze that moment before the first crack appeared. We didn't take an exotic honeymoon, just a lakeside cottage a few hours outside the city. A fireplace, a kayak, a bottle of wine each night. No pressure, no itineraries. Ethan cooked breakfast every morning, scrambled eggs, toast with jam, black coffee. He always poured mine first. During the day, we swam in the lake, read books on the dock, listened to old jazz playlists. At night, we wrapped ourselves around each other like the world had gone silent and we were the only two people left. He said things like, "I never knew love could feel this." Still, I told him I felt seen for the first time in years. The mornings were slow, the kind of slow that doesn't feel lazy but sacred. I'd wake to him already dressed, scrolling his phone quietly, looking out the window. Once I asked what he was doing. "Just checking email," he'd say. "I don't want to fall behind with clients." He was a real estate consultant, always on his phone, juggling listings, sellers, open houses. I admired his drive, his attention to detail. I didn't notice that he always turned the screen away. Not yet. Back home, married life unfolded sweetly at first. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, which meant I made our apartment cozy during the day. Candles, music, freshly washed blankets, flowers on the table. He'd come home, kiss me on the cheek, tell me dinner smelled amazing, even when it didn't. He left early each morning, just after sunrise, always clean-shaven, always with purpose. I'd make us tea in the evenings. We'd sit on the couch with his arm around my shoulder, watching documentaries or crime shows. He always said, "You'd be the smart one on a detective team." On day 3, we reorganized the closet together. He asked if I wanted a separate drawer for my skincare. I want you to feel like this place is just as much yours, he said. Little did I know that sentence would haunt me later. Day 4, he came home later than usual. Said he had dinner with a client who needed a late-night consultation about a lake house. Seemed normal. He smelled like cologne, familiar but stronger than usual. I hugged him, then paused. There was another scent, too, something floral. Not my perfume. He noticed me pause and smiled. Susan hugs everyone. That woman's a walking perfume bottle. I laughed, brushed it off. Because that's what you do when you trust someone. You choose not to ask the hard question. Day 6. He left his phone in the kitchen while he showered. It buzzed. The screen lit up with a text. Can't wait for Sunday, X. Just that, no name. My breath caught for half a second. I didn't touch it. I didn't snoop. I just stared at the words like they might rearrange themselves into something innocent. When he came out, towel slung around his hips, I asked, "What's happening Sunday?" He blinked, then smiled. "Oh, right, Max invited us for brunch. I'll text him back." He picked up the phone too quickly, too casually. I nodded, but something in me filed it away. Day 7, he started locking the bathroom door when he showered. Not a big deal, just different. Day 8, I noticed he always left his phone face down. Every time. No matter where we were, even when he was charging it. Day 9, he left a meeting suddenly after a call from a contractor. I didn't ask why his voice sounded tight when he stepped outside, or why he didn't look me in the eyes when he came back in. Day 10 changed everything. It was raining that morning. He kissed me goodbye and said he was heading out early, had a meeting an hour away. "Don't wait up," he said, half-buttoning his shirt. "Might be a long one." I nodded, said I'd probably just do laundry and read. He grabbed his gym bag but left it near the door by mistake. I didn't even notice until after lunch. When I picked it up to move it, it tipped. Something fell out. A phone, but not the one I knew. Not the iPhone with the cracked case and fingerprint lock. This was a burner phone. Small, black, cheap, and unlocked. I froze, picked it up. My hands were shaking. I didn't want to look, but I did. There were only a handful of messages. All from someone saved as A. "You're still coming Sunday, right? Ava misses you. Don't forget to bring her favorite cake this time. And tell her the story about the blue dog again. She keeps asking. Love you. Let me know when you're on your way." I sat down on the floor, hard. I didn't even realize I'd stopped breathing until my lungs burned. Ava, a child. Who was A? Who was he bringing cake to? What story? What blue dog? What the hell was I reading? The apartment was suddenly too quiet. The candles smelled fake. The flowers looked cheap. The photos on the walls mocked me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat on the kitchen floor holding a phone I wasn't supposed to find, reading words I wasn't meant to see, trying to decide if my life had just ended or if it had never truly started. I married Ethan 10 days ago. 10. And already, I was asking the one question no woman should ever have to ask. Who the hell did I marry? The day after I found the second phone, I didn't sleep. Not really. I closed my eyes, but every time I drifted off, the messages would replay in my mind like a broken loop. Ava misses you. Her favorite cake. Tell her the story about the blue dog again. I couldn't breathe. How many years had he lived this other life? How many bedtime stories had he told someone else's child, while I was in our bed, thinking he was mine? But I didn't confront him. Not yet. Something inside me, something deeper than panic, told me to wait. Watch. Listen. Find the truth and find all of it. Because if I was right, if Ethan was really living 2 lives, I needed more than suspicion. I needed evidence. Not just for me, but for whatever legal hell was coming next. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing happened. French toast, berries, fresh coffee. I even wore one of the silky robes he liked. Ethan walked into the kitchen looking like a man who had it all. He kissed my cheek, told me I looked beautiful, and I smiled back. Because that's what women like me have learned to do. Smile while your stomach is burning. Pretend while your world is on fire. He didn't mention the burner phone. It was gone when I woke up. He must have realized it was missing. Or maybe he kept it in the gym bag on purpose to test if I'd find it. I said nothing. Instead, I started noticing everything. That week, I became a shadow in my own life. I tracked Ethan's patterns. He left every day at 7:15 a.m., said his first meeting was at 8, but traffic to his office. Never more than 20 minutes. So where was he going for 25 extra minutes? I started checking Google Maps after he left. One morning, I followed the route he should have taken and realized he made a detour toward a neighborhood I didn't recognize. A place called Briar Hill. It was 20 minutes out of the way. The houses there weren't fancy, but not shabby either. Suburban, quiet, the kind of place you'd raise a family. I didn't follow him, not yet, but I wrote it down. Later that night, I checked our shared credit card statements. One charge stood out. $63, $42 at Sweet Sprinkles Bakery on a Sunday. He told me he was golfing with Max that day. Sweet Sprinkles was in Briar Hill. And their specialty? Children's birthday cakes. My fingers went numb. I kept scrolling. More charges, grocery store receipts from neighborhoods I'd never shopped in, 2 gas stations on the opposite side of town, a recurring charge from a small daycare center I'd never heard of. It hit me like a gut punch. He wasn't just visiting someone in Briar Hill. He was providing for someone there. I thought about that little girl. Ava, was she his daughter? Was she 5, 8? Did she look like him? Did she call him daddy? And who was Amanda, Anna, Alexis? Was she the real wife, or just the other version of me? My hands were shaking when I opened his old iPad, one he hadn't used in months. It was still linked to his iCloud. I opened photos. Nothing new in the camera roll, but I clicked on the hidden folder, and there they were. Photos, a dozen, maybe more, Ethan, with a woman I didn't recognize, long brown hair, soft smile, and a child, a little girl in a pink jacket, big eyes, brown curls. He was holding her in one arm, smiling into the camera. There was one of them sitting in a park together. He was tying her shoes. Another, her blowing out candles on a cake with blue icing. I zoomed in. The cake said, "Happy 4th birthday, Ava." I dropped the iPad. It clattered on the floor, screen facing up, the smile on his face frozen. Not our wedding photo, not a memory we shared, a life I had never seen, and it looked real. Not a fling, not a mistake, a second life. I stood there, arms wrapped around myself, barely breathing. How long had this been going on? Did he marry me as a backup? Or worse, was I the other woman all along? That night, when Ethan came home, I had already deleted the browser history, put the iPad back, and folded the burner phone into an old drawer under the sink. He kissed me, told me he missed me. I smiled. "Missed you too." But in my mind, I wasn't kissing Ethan. I was kissing a stranger, and I was planning my next move. I became 2 versions of myself. One, the wife who made dinner, folded his socks, kissed him on the forehead before bed. And the other, a woman hunting for the truth, alone in her own house, afraid of what she might find. It was like living a double life, but I wasn't the one who started it. He was. Over the next few days, I tracked everything. I downloaded a tracking app on his main phone while he was showering. I didn't even flinch. The app wasn't fancy, just gave me basic GPS pings, but it was enough. Every Tuesday and Thursday between 6:45 a.m. and 9:10 a.m., Ethan's phone stopped in Briar Hill. Same location. A house, white fence, brick porch. Number 2123, I looked it up online. The tax record listed a woman named Amanda Carter as the homeowner. Amanda. She owned the place for 5 years. 5, I'd known Ethan for 2.5. I suddenly couldn't breathe. This wasn't a girlfriend. This wasn't new. This was old. I was the recent addition. I was the second act. The next step broke me. I hired a private investigator. It felt ridiculous, like something out of a bad movie. But I needed someone who wasn't emotionally involved. Someone who could tell me what was real. His name was Roy. Mid-50s, quiet, no nonsense. Said he'd seen it all. "Don't worry," he told me, jotting down Ethan's name, plate number, and his work address. "If there's a second life, I'll find it." 3 days later, Roy emailed me a file. I stared at it for 10 minutes before I opened it. Inside, photos of Ethan entering Amanda Carter's home. A picture of him holding a child, Ava, in his arms. A shot of him, and Amanda kissing by her mailbox. A list of visits, 12 in the last 30 days. Roy's note was short: married man, living dual domestic routines, possible shared custody or full-time arrangement, strong signs of long-term cohabitation, emotionally involved. I didn't cry. I sat on the floor of our closet and stared at the mirror. I looked like myself, but I didn't recognize the woman looking back. How had I been so blind? That night, Ethan came home late again. Said he was showing a house to an older couple who just couldn't decide. He poured himself a whiskey, asked if I wanted one. I said no. I watched him drink it, watched his hands, steady, relaxed, and I realized he didn't feel guilty. He wasn't struggling to lie, because for him this wasn't lying. This was normal. He built an entire rhythm around it. 2 homes, 2 women, 2 lives, and maybe 2 versions of himself. The man I married didn't exist. He was an illusion, a carefully constructed role. And suddenly, I didn't want to be his co-star anymore. I wanted out of the movie, but not before I burned the whole set down. The next morning, I woke up before him. Watched him sleep for a while, peaceful, still. He looked like someone who deserved love, but he didn't. He deserved exposure. He deserved to be known for who he really was, not by just me, but by Amanda, by Ava, by his friends. His coworkers, his family, all of them. And the only way to do that was to play the long game. I needed to stay quiet, stay smart, collect everything. Because when I walked away, I wasn't leaving as a victim. I was leaving as the one who knew everything. And I was going to make sure the world knew it too. Amanda, just saying her name in my head gave me a strange feeling. Not hatred, not jealousy, something worse. A kind of grief. Like I'd just found out there was a version of my life that had already been lived, and I was the copy. The draft, the backup plan. The night I read her name on the property record, I couldn't sleep. Again. Instead, I sat on the living room couch with my laptop, bathed in screen light and anger. I typed her name into Facebook. Too fast. Misspelled it, backspaced. Typed again. And there she was, Amanda Carter, 34 years old. Lives in Briar Hill, works in communications at a local nonprofit. Her profile was mostly private, but I could still see her profile picture. She was standing on a beach, smiling at the camera, holding hands with a child. The same child from the photos on Ethan's hidden iPad album. Ava. God, Ava had Ethan's eyes. That crooked smile that shows too much gum. The same shade of chestnut hair. Even the way she tilted her head in photos, just like him. There was no denying it. This wasn't a maybe. This was his child. I went deeper. LinkedIn showed Amanda had worked at Voices for Hope for 7 years. Before that, she was a marketing manager at a local paper. She had a bachelor's in communications and a master's in nonprofit leadership. Her coworkers left glowing recommendations on her profile: dedicated, authentic, born to lead. She seemed kind. She seemed good. And that made it worse, because I couldn't paint her as the villain. I couldn't tell myself she knew about me and still stayed. From what I was seeing, Amanda had no clue. She had been with Ethan for years, probably thought she was his only partner, the real one. And I married for 10 days was a secret. An accessory, an interruption. I wanted to scream. The next morning, I watched Ethan eat eggs like nothing was wrong. He scrolled on his phone, asked me what my workday looked like, complimented my robe. I nodded, smiled, said I'd probably, just work on some logo revisions for a client. In reality, I was going to spend the whole day figuring out how to contact Amanda. Not as a threat, but as a fellow victim. I couldn't move forward without knowing what she knew. Because maybe, just maybe, she was wondering the same things I was. I made a fake Gmail account. Nothing fancy, just an anonymous name. Then I wrote a draft email. It sat unsent in my inbox for hours. Dear Amanda, I don't know how to say this, so I'll say it plainly. I believe we may both be involved with the same man. His name is Ethan. I have reason to believe you have a daughter with him, and I recently married him without knowing you existed. I'm not here to blame you. I'm here to understand what's going on. If you're willing, I'd like to meet and talk. No drama. Just the truth. Claire. I stared at that message for hours. My finger hovered over the send button 100 times, but I didn't press it. Not yet. Because once I sent it, there would be no going back. Instead, I drove to Briar Hill. It was Saturday. Ethan said he had to take a client to look at lakefront condos. He'd be gone most of the day. I told him I'd go see my sister. I lied. I parked 2 blocks from Amanda's house. Wore sunglasses, pulled my hair into a hat. I wasn't sure what I expected. I didn't bring binoculars or anything. I just sat there and watched. The house was cute, pale yellow with white shutters. A small tricycle sat on the lawn. Flower boxes on the windows. It looked lived in, loved. After 20 minutes, the front door opened. Amanda stepped out, holding Ava's hand. My heart nearly stopped. I watched as they walked to the driveway, laughing about something. Ava twirled once, almost tripping. Amanda caught her. Then, Ethan walked out behind them, casual, holding a car seat. He kissed Amanda's cheek, and I shattered. I had to put my hand over my mouth to stop from making a sound. He looked happy, not stressed, not guilty, happy. And then Ava reached for him and he picked her up, swinging her gently. She wrapped her arms around his neck like she'd done it 1,000 times before, because she had. Because she was his child. Because this wasn't occasional. This was routine. I drove away shaking, parked at a gas station 2 miles away and sat in silence. I could hear blood in my ears, couldn't feel my fingers. This wasn't just an affair. This was a family, a whole life. How had he hidden it so well? How had he married me with that smile, knowing he was already someone else's everything? I couldn't breathe. I opened my phone, typed, "How to annul a marriage for fraud." Then deleted it, because I wasn't ready to end it yet. Not until she knew. Not until we both knew everything. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sent the email. I didn't sleep, didn't even go to bed. I watched the inbox until 2 a.m. Nothing. The next morning, still nothing. By afternoon, I thought maybe she'd blocked the message or assumed it was spam. But then at 5:12 p.m., a reply, "Hello. I don't know who you are or what kind of game this is, but I am Ava's mother. Ethan is my partner. Has been for years. If this is some scam or sick joke, stop now. But if what you're saying is true, we need to talk." I exhaled like I'd been drowning. She didn't know. She didn't know. I wasn't the only one betrayed. We were both pieces in Ethan's sick little board game, but not for much longer. I replied, "I'm real, and I have proof." We met on a Wednesday afternoon. Quiet cafe, neutral ground, no sharp objects in sight. I arrived early, chose a booth by the window, ordered chamomile tea because my stomach was already too twisted for coffee. I wore simple clothes, no makeup, no lipstick. I didn't want to look like I was performing womanhood today. I just wanted to be honest. At 7 p.m., she walked in. Amanda. And just like in the photos, I felt nothing but sadness. She looked like someone who should have been my friend. Warm face, soft eyes. The kind of woman who reads bedtime stories in silly voices and makes Pinterest cupcakes for birthdays. She scanned the room, our eyes locked. She came over, slow steps like walking into a fire. "Claire," she asked. I nodded. She sat. We didn't speak for a few seconds. She looked at me like she was still deciding if I was real. And I looked at her like she was a reflection I didn't know I had. "I don't know where to start," she said. I gave a small, broken smile. "Me neither." She glanced around the cafe, then at me, then down at her hands. "Okay," she exhaled. "I guess I'll go first." She reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. Ava, sitting on Ethan's shoulders, a park in autumn, leaves everywhere. "I've been with him for 7 years," she said. My throat tightened. "We met through a charity fundraiser. He was charming, too charming, but I fell for it." I didn't interrupt. I let her keep going. "He moved in with me after a year. Told me he wasn't ready to marry yet, but that he wanted a life with me. Then Ava came along." She smiled for a second, genuine, but it faded fast. "He was a good dad. Still is, I guess. He's there. He picks her up from school, makes her breakfast, sings the stupid songs she likes. He's present." I felt a cold rage flicker under my skin. Because I'd begged him to consider having children, and he'd said he wasn't ready. "He said he traveled a lot for work," Amanda went on. "That he had real estate clients all over the state, that he sometimes stayed overnight to save gas." She looked at me. "That's when he was with you, wasn't it?" I nodded, slowly. Carefully. "I met him 2 years ago," I said. "He told me he was divorced, no kids, said he was finally ready to settle down again." Amanda blinked hard. "No kids." I shook my head, swore it was just him. That his last relationship ended badly. That he wanted something real. She looked like she'd been punched. I knew the feeling. I pulled out a small envelope from my bag. Inside were copies of the photos Roy had taken. Ethan and Amanda. Ethan and Ava. Ethan entering her house on Tuesday mornings. I slid them across the table. She stared. Her hands trembled. "I had a pie follow him," I said. "Not because I thought of you. I didn't even know you existed. I just felt like something was wrong." She swallowed hard. Then, without looking at me, she whispered, "How long have you been married?" I hesitated. 10 days. Amanda laughed, not a real laugh. More like a sound she couldn't stop from escaping. "Jesus Christ," she muttered. "He married you 10 days ago and still tucked Ava in 2 nights ago." I nodded. Her eyes started to fill, but she blinked them dry. "I thought I was the wife," she whispered. "Turns out I'm just phase 1. "No," I said, "you're not." She looked at me, eyebrows furrowed. "I don't think either of us are. He doesn't have a wife. He has stories, versions, costumes." Amanda shook her head. "He tucked my daughter in and then put a ring on your finger. And probably lied to both of us the whole way through." We sat in silence for a while. 2 women, same man, same heartbreak. Amanda finally spoke. "I keep wondering how he didn't mess up, how he kept the calendars straight. The birthdays, the lies, the logistics." I exhaled. "Because we helped him without knowing it. We believed him. We made excuses when things didn't add up. We loved him." She stared at her tea like it could give her the answers. Then she looked at me. "I'm not angry at you." "Me neither," I said. "I think we're just the ones who stopped looking away." That line hung in the air between us. We stopped looking away. We saw him for who he was. And now what? "I want him to know," Amanda said, voice low. "I want him to know that I know, that we know, that the story is over." I nodded, but not yet. She tilted her head. "What if we don't confront him?" I said. "What if we let him keep performing for just a little while we prepare the stage?" She caught on fast. "You mean gather everything, financials, emails, photos, maybe even legal advice?" I nodded. "He thinks we're still asleep. Let's use that." She smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, but it was strong. It was the beginning of something else. Not revenge, not yet, but resolution, and maybe justice. We made a plan, nothing wild. No sabotage, no screaming scenes. We would document. Emails, texts, financial overlaps, travel records, phone logs, and most of all, proof that Ethan never disclosed Ava to me. That he lied about his marital status. that he crafted a false identity and entered a legal marriage with fraudulent intent. That way, when I left, I could annul everything. And when Amanda left, she could do it with her dignity, her home, and full custody. It wouldn't be a breakdown, it would be an exit. Planned, calculated, final. We hugged before we left the cafe. It was awkward, hesitant, but real. Not because we were friends, not yet, but because we were survivors. And we finally saw the woman on the other side, not a rival, but a mirror. And the reflection said, "You're not alone anymore." We didn't burn the house down right away. We gathered wood. Quietly, patiently, carefully. And every day that Ethan walked through the front door of our shared apartment, dropped his keys in the bowl, kissed me like nothing was wrong, was another log on the pile. I smiled through dinners. I asked about his day. I let him wrap his arms around me in bed and whisper things I used to believe. But my eyes were open now. My hands were busy collecting evidence, and so were Amanda's. We had a shared folder, hidden, encrypted, password protected. We titled it Sunny Days, which felt like the most ironic joke of the year. Inside were screenshots, photos, scanned documents, and recorded voice notes. Amanda had started forwarding me her emails with Ethan. When he said he was traveling for work, when he promised he'd be back by Ava's recital, when he wired money from an account that was also partially tied to my name. I recorded conversations. Simple ones. Like Ethan telling me he had to fly to Denver for a last-minute real estate deal. On the same day, Amanda sent a photo of him at Ava's kindergarten picnic. Or when he said he wasn't ready to be a father yet, just days after helping Ava build a Lego castle and saying, "Dads are supposed to be the king, right?" He didn't even try to remember his lies, because he didn't think I was listening. But I was. I was listening to everything now. Amanda had started seeing a lawyer. Not to sue, not yet, just to understand her options. It turns out there was a legal path forward for both of us, fraud-based annulment for me and full custody for her if she could prove his deception and instability. I'd been married less than a month. She'd been lied to for years. But the betrayal hit us the same way, like the floor had been yanked out from under us and we were just learning how to stand again. Together. There was something therapeutic about documenting him. It gave me back a sliver of control. While he smiled and kissed me goodnight, I was silently creating an archive of his hypocrisy, like an undercover spy in my own life. I started noticing patterns. Tuesdays and Thursdays were always Amanda days. Sunday mornings, he went for runs, but always came back showered and with a receipt from the bakery near Amanda's house. He had 2 toothbrushes, one in his car and one in his gym bag. He had an email alias he used only when booking trips to Amanda's side of town. And worst of all, he had a second engagement ring. Amanda found it in a drawer last spring. Dee said he was waiting for the right time. He'd proposed to me with a different ring 3 months later. He had proposed to both of us, just not in the same calendar year. One afternoon, Amanda called me, breathless. "You're not going to believe this," she said. She had found a birthday card from Ethan to Ava, saved from 2 years ago. Inside, in his handwriting, he had written, "To my favorite little secret. Someday, the world will know how special you are." My stomach turned. He had called his own daughter a secret, like she was a burden, like love was something to be hidden, not celebrated. That was the moment something inside me hardened. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about what kind of man Ethan really was, and who he'd always been. Amanda and I met again, this time at her house after Ethan had gone to work. Ava was with her friend's mom. It felt strange, walking through the home he shared with another woman. Everything was warm, personal. There were baby photos on the fridge, a pair of tiny shoes at the door. He had a life here, a real life. And he'd been trying to build a second one with me, like stacking houses of cards, hoping neither would fall. "Did you love him?" I asked Amanda. She didn't answer right away. Then she nodded slowly. Yes, or at least I loved who I thought he was. I understood that completely, because I had too. We sat at her kitchen table, with a printed spreadsheet between us. Every day, every excuse, every cross-reference time he was in two places at once. We were turning our heartbreak into a case file. It was methodical, cold, necessary. The more we filled in the blanks, the clearer the picture became. Ethan wasn't just a liar, he was a planner. He had built two realities with precision, but even the best liars slip, and we were catching every crack. It was around that time that I stopped crying, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I was focused. Revenge isn't rage, it's discipline. It's waiting until the silence is heavier than the shouting, until the evidence speaks louder than your anger, until you can look the person who broke you straight in the eye and smile. Because you know, and soon they will too. I started preparing my exit. I moved half my money out of our shared account. I rented a safety deposit box for my copy of the evidence. I spoke to my boss, told her I might need a few personal days in the near future. I told no one else, because secrets, when used with care, can be protection. Amanda did the same. She started working with a family attorney to draft a custody agreement. Quietly, legally, clean, no drama, no mess, just truth, presented properly. One night, I came home late from Amanda's. Ethan was already in bed, reading. He looked up, smiled. Long day. I nodded, stopped by my sister S, lost track of time. He put his book down, reached for my hand. You've been so calm lately, he said. I like it, feels like we're finally syncing up. I smiled back. It was a lie, but I was getting good at those too. He kissed my forehead. I kissed his cheek. And in my head, I thought, you have no idea, but soon you will. We didn't drop the bomb. We lit the match. Because some betrayals don't need explosions. They just need oxygen. And we were about to take all the air out of Ethan's carefully constructed world. The change started small. I stopped being easy. No more pre-cooked dinners waiting when he got home. No more cuddles in the morning. I answered his questions with questions. You okay? He asked one Thursday night. Are you? He blinked, just asking. You've been quiet. I guess I'm just seeing things differently now, I replied, looking him dead in the eye. A flicker of confusion passed across his face. He smiled a little, but it didn't reach his eyes. He was trying to read me. Good. Let him wonder. Let him feel what it's like to not be sure. Amanda pulled back too. She told him she needed a little space for work projects. Started turning down his overnight stays. Claimed Ava had been sick or that she had too many meetings early in the morning. She said he got irritated, but didn't push too hard. Which means, she told me, he's still trying to keep both of us on the hook. He doesn't want either line to snap. I nodded, because I could feel it too. The weight of his juggling act was starting to wear on him. He stayed on his phone longer, checked over his shoulder when texting, changed his phone password to something new, but it was too late. I had already cloned the old one weeks ago. I had everything. It was a text from Amanda that finally pushed the next phase. She had found a printed contract. In Ethan's office drawer, a lease. He was renting an apartment downtown, a third place, not with me, not with her, a place with nobody. Yet, what's he doing with it? I asked. She sent back one word. Preparing. That chilled me more than anything. He wasn't content with two lives. He wanted a clean slate. A way to drop us both, maybe, or worse, start a new lie. That weekend, I invited him on a romantic getaway. Just 2 days. A cabin in the mountains, quiet, remote. He loved the idea, said we needed the time. I smiled and told him to pack light. Meanwhile, Amanda booked her own meeting with her lawyer. We weren't striking all at once, but we were closing in. Like wolves circling a tired fox. And the fox had no idea his tracks were already marked. At the cabin, I played the part. I cooked dinner, wore soft sweaters, lit candles. He was relaxed, too relaxed. He poured wine and toasted to our fresh start. I clinked glasses and smiled. "Here's to truth," I said. He laughed. "To honesty." I held my glass to my lips but didn't drink. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't nervous. Because he didn't think he'd ever get caught. Not really. He thought he was smarter than us, above suspicion. He thought he was winning. The next morning, I brought up Ava, just casually, mid-breakfast. "I saw this little girl the other day," I said, slicing into my waffle. "She looked just like you." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah." Same smile, same eyes. She was with her mom, really sweet. Made me think, do you ever want kids? He paused, then shrugged. "Maybe someday, with the right person." I stared at him, then smiled. And in my head, I whispered, "Liar." When we got home, I started planting more seeds. I left my laptop open, on the screen of an email thread with a friend named Amy. There was no Amy. It was Amanda's burner account, but Ethan saw the name. And the subject line, "Does he ever seem different when he lies?" He didn't ask, not yet, but I saw him looking. I saw the doubt start to enter his eyes, and once doubt enters, it multiplies. Amanda did the same. She left her journal open on the kitchen table, one line written in bold pen. "He lies, I lie back. What happens when we stop pretending?" He saw it, she made sure of it. And the next day, he brought her flowers. That same night, he texted me he missed our connection lately and asked if I was happy. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "What do you think?" No emoji, no heart, just silence after that. We were heating the pot, letting him sweat. He wasn't sure what we knew, but he knew something had shifted. He started calling more, asking questions he never cared about before. "Where were you this afternoon?" "You seemed weird yesterday." "Everything good with your sister?" I answered politely, but vaguely. It drove him nuts. He was used to women who gave him peace while he lived in pieces. Now the peace was gone, and the silence was a storm. Amanda and I scheduled one final checkpoint. We met at a diner halfway between her house and mine. She looked tired. I probably did too, but we also looked alive. Stronger, sharper, more awake than we had been in months. We reviewed everything. We had documents, recordings, witnesses. We had the dates, the times, the texts, the voice memos. We even had Ethan admitting once, on the phone to a friend, that Amanda gets the family side, Claire gets the business side. Like we were two departments in his corporation of lies. It was almost time. One more move. One final nudge. Then, ignition. I went home and did something I hadn't done in weeks. I cooked dinner. His favorite steak with garlic butter and mashed potatoes. He came home, kissed my cheek, smiled. "This looks amazing." I nodded, sat across from him, watched him eat. Halfway through the meal, I said, "Let us have a real conversation." He froze, then smiled but tight. "Okay, about what?" I leaned forward. "Do you love me?" He blinked. "Of course." "Do you think I love you?" He hesitated. "Yes." "Do you think you know everything about me?" Now he paused, longer, then said, "No one knows everything about anyone." I nodded. Good answer. And I stood up, took my plate to the sink, looked back. "You should remember that, it goes both ways." Then I went to bed early and left him sitting in the quiet, wondering, doubting, sinking. He texted Amanda that night, asked if she'd had a bad day. She replied, "Not yet, but maybe tomorrow." That was our cue. The match was lit, the fire was ready, and all that was left was to let it burn. I didn't hit send right away. I hovered over the email like it was a loaded weapon. Subject, "Let's talk about the truth." Attachments, 34 files, one audio recording, one folder titled Sunny Days. My finger trembled over the mouse. And then I clicked. It was done. The fire had been lit. Amanda sent hers 3 minutes later. Same attachments, same tone. Cold, composed, undeniable. Hers went to his personal email. Mine went to his work. No accusations, no rants. Just truth, the kind you can't explain away with charm or excuses. Just timestamps, photos, transcripts, proof, in black and white. and a short message at the end. You don't get to rewrite the story anymore. He called me 12 times that night. I didn't answer. The voicemails started out angry, then desperate, then quiet. By the 6th one, he was crying. By the 9th, he wasn't even using words, just breathing, choking on silence. Amanda didn't pick up either. We listened, but we didn't respond. Because when someone sets a fire, you don't run in to save them. You let it burn. He showed up at Amanda's door the next morning. She didn't answer. Instead, her lawyer did. Through the intercom. Mr. Callahan, my client has filed for sole custody. You will be served today. Please leave the property. He stood there for 5 minutes, then walked back to his car and sat for 10, then drove away. Amanda watched from the upstairs window. I watched from the live camera feed she shared. Neither of us said anything, but we knew. The game was over. He didn't come home that night. Not to me, not to Amanda. He went to his 3rd apartment, the one we'd already found, already documented. I knew because the location tag on his iPad gave him away. He hadn't turned off the sink. He wasn't thinking clearly anymore. The cracks were growing. And I wasn't done. The next day, I walked into his office. I was wearing his favorite blazer. The one he said made me look like a CEO ready to conquer. I smiled at the receptionist. I have a meeting with Ethan, I said. She nodded. Claire Wright. I froze. She knew my name. He told people about me, just not the truth. I walked into his glass-walled office and closed the door behind me. He looked like hell. Unshaven, pale, eyes rimmed with red. He didn't speak, so I did. You built a fire, Ethan, I said, and you threw us all in. He tried to stand. Claire, I held up a hand. No, you don't get to talk first anymore. He sat, and I began. I told him everything. Everything I knew, every lie, every trip, every duplicate toothbrush and email and bank transaction. I laid it out like evidence at trial. And when I was done, I said, you didn't just break my trust. You broke reality. You split your life into pieces and expected us to live in each one like we wouldn't notice. He stared at the desk. I didn't mean. Don't, I said. Don't insult me by pretending this wasn't deliberate. You're not dumb, you're just selfish. His hands shook. I thought I could manage it, I thought. You thought we were props, I said. That love was something you could franchise. He looked up then, eyes full of tears. I did love you. I smiled. No. You loved what I gave you, and Amanda too. But love without honesty is just theft. And you stole 5 years of her life. 10 days of mine. I stood. You don't get either anymore. Then I walked out. Amanda had her final meeting with her lawyer that afternoon. Custody papers were filed. A restraining order was considered. He hadn't hurt her physically, but the emotional manipulation, the hiding, the deception, it was enough to raise concern. Especially with a child involved. The lawyer said judges took that seriously now. Amanda cried on the phone with me that night, not for him, but for Ava. She's going to ask about her dad one day, she whispered. What do I tell her? I didn't know, but I said what I believed. You tell her you loved her enough to leave someone who lied to you both. She nodded. I just hope that's enough. It is, I said, because it had to be. My own path was simpler. We were barely married. Annulment proceedings started. I filed under fraud. His silence was agreement. I moved out, packed in 2 days, left a note on the kitchen counter. I forgive you, but that doesn't mean I'll stay. He didn't respond. And I didn't need him to, because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's a choice. Amanda and I met one last time. At a small park, Ava running ahead of us chasing ducks. We sat on a bench, tired, hollow, but alive. I never thought it would end like this, she said. Neither did I. She looked at me, but I'm glad I met you. I smiled. Me too. We sat in silence, watching her daughter laugh. And somewhere in the distance, the last ashes of Ethan's empire floated away. No flames, no wreckage, just air, clear, free. That night, I lit a candle in my apartment. Not for mourning, for memory. I watched the flame flicker, then blew it out, because some fires are meant to end, so we can finally see the stars. You think it ends when the truth comes out, that once the liar is exposed, the wound will close and life will quietly return to normal. But that's not how it works. The truth doesn't heal. It clears the room. And then you're left standing in the silence, staring at the wreckage, alone. The first morning I woke up alone in my new apartment, I thought I would cry. Instead, I made pancakes. Not because I wasn't sad, but because I was free. There was no pretending anymore. No mental calculations, no emotional gymnastics, no wondering if I was imagining things or overreacting. The truth had scorched everything. And what was left? Me and a clean slate. Amanda and I didn't talk for a few weeks after everything ended. It wasn't tension. It was fatigue. Like soldiers who had survived the same war but needed space to recover in their own foxholes. I spent my days reorganizing my life, closed the joint accounts, canceled my name from the lease we shared, sent back the last of his things in a cardboard box with no note. He didn't try to stop me. And I didn't wait for an apology, because some damage doesn't need fixing. It needs moving on. I started therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to. I needed to understand how I had missed so much, why I had ignored so many signs. How do you feel about trust? My therapist asked in our second session. I laughed, like it's an endangered species. She smiled gently, but it's not extinct. No, I didn't think it was. But it would take time to believe in it again. Time, and maybe something more. I changed my number, got a new email, started a new job, not because I had to, but because I wanted something that didn't have his shadow in it. Something that didn't smell like his cologne or echo with his lies. I moved to a different part of the city, walked to work, found a new grocery store, became a regular at a little cafe on the corner where no one knew my story. Where I was, the woman whose husband had a secret family. I was just Claire, just me, and for the first time in months, that was enough. Amanda and I reconnected slowly, a message here, a check-in there. She sent me a photo of Ava painting her bedroom, all pinks and yellows and stars. She said she wanted to live in a sky she made herself. I stared at the photo for a long time. That kid had more courage than most adults. I want to do the same, I texted back. Paint a new sky. Amanda replied, let's go buy the brushes. We met again, in person, at that same diner we used for our war meetings. But this time we weren't trading evidence or whispering secrets. We were ordering pancakes, smiling, breathing. I feel like I aged 10 years, Amanda said, stirring her coffee. Same, but maybe we needed to. She nodded. You think he ever loved us, either of us? I paused, then said, I think he loved control, and we confused that with love because we were generous. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded again. I'm done confusing things. Me too. We clinked coffee mugs. It wasn't celebration, it was survival. Ethan didn't reach out, not for months. And then one day he did. A single email, no subject line, just, I'm sorry for all of it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to say. Some stories don't need sequels. They need silence. One rainy afternoon, I found myself walking through a bookstore. No plan, just wandering. I stopped at the self-help section almost out of habit, and then turned away. Instead, I picked up a novel, a love story. Not because I was ready, but because I wanted to believe again, even just a little, even in fiction. Hope isn't loud, it's quiet, a whisper under the door, a flicker in the ash. I took a solo trip that summer, 3 days by the ocean. No phone, no schedule. I brought a journal and wrote every morning, about anger, about clarity, about how betrayal doesn't define you, it just reveals what you refuse to ignore again. On the third morning, I wrote, I'm not who I was before him, but I'm more myself than I've ever been. That felt true. Pain doesn't erase identity. Sometimes it carves it. When I got home, Amanda sent me a photo. Ava holding a sign that said, "First day of kindergarten." Ethan wasn't in the picture, and Ava was still smiling. I cried then, not out of sadness, but because kids are resilient, and so are women, especially when we choose each other. Especially when we rise together, instead of being broken apart in secret. My therapist asked me once, "What do you want moving forward?" I thought for a long time, then said, "Peace, purpose, and to never again mistake chaos for passion." She smiled. "That sounds like healing." It did, not the kind that comes overnight, but the kind you build one morning at a time. One step, one boundary, one brave choice. I'm still scared sometimes, of trusting again, of being fooled, of missing the red flags, but I also know now. That fear doesn't protect you. Discernment does, boundaries do. And sometimes, a good friend and a shared Google folder named Sunny Days is all it takes to change everything. I lit a candle on what would have been our anniversary, not to mourn, to mark survival. Then I blew it out. Because I didn't need fire anymore. I had light, and I had me, whole, scarred, honest, and finally free. Some people think starting over means starting from scratch, but we never truly start from zero. We begin with scars, with memory, with the lessons tattooed on our ribs and the caution tucked behind our ribs. That's how I began again. With everything I knew I'd never allow again. 3 months after I left Ethan, I bought a second-hand bookshelf. It was chipped in one corner and smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. I spent the afternoon sanding it down, painting it white, and stacking it with books I hadn't touched in years. Poetry, novels, stories that reminded me I still loved love, even if I didn't trust it fully yet. The bookshelf sat in my living room like a declaration. Not everything needs to be burned. Some things we rebuild. I joined a cooking class on Thursday nights. The instructor was a woman in her 60s named Maria, who wore cherry earrings and swore like a sailor. She taught us how to make gnocchi and caramelized onions and said things like, "Don't be gentle. Life is." I liked her. She never asked about my past. She just handed me a wooden spoon and said, "Stir like you mean it." It felt good to do something with my hands that didn't involve wiping tears or deleting emails. To feed myself, really feed myself, with joy. Amanda and I started sending each other photos of our small wins. Her, a yoga mat laid out in the living room, untouched but hopeful. Me, a plant that hadn't died in 2 weeks. Her, Ava's drawing taped to the fridge with a tiny heart drawn above their heads. Me, a cake I'd baked from scratch, slightly burned but still standing. We weren't thriving yet, but we were surviving, and that mattered. One afternoon, I saw Ethan in a grocery store parking lot. I was walking to my car. He was loading groceries into his. He looked thinner, not sick, just hollow. He didn't see me, or if he did, he didn't show it. I watched him for 5 seconds. Then I got into my car and drove away. No wave. No confrontation. No scene. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's just choosing not to reopen a wound. Dating wasn't on my radar, but healing was. And sometimes healing brings people into your life who feel like a maybe. His name was Jude. I met him at a bookstore reading. He laughed at the same line I did, and we struck up a conversation in the coffee shop next door. He had kind eyes, and a habit of listening all the way to the end of your sentence before responding. He asked if I wanted to meet for coffee again sometime. I said yes. Then I panicked. I told him my story 2 weeks in. Not the whole thing, just enough to be honest. He didn't flinch. He didn't offer pity or advice. Just nodded and said, "Thank you for trusting me." And then asked if I preferred vanilla or cinnamon in my latte. That's when I realized I wasn't broken, just rebuilding. Amanda started a blog. She called it "The Other Woman Was Me," It was raw, unapologetic, sometimes funny, sometimes heartbreaking. She wrote about shame, about love, about raising a daughter while reclaiming her own voice. I read every post. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I laughed out loud. Mostly I just felt proud. She wasn't just surviving, she was shining. And that gave me permission to do the same. One night, Jude made us dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and roasted vegetables. But he set the table with candles and mismatched napkins and played soft jazz in the background. Afterward, we danced in the kitchen. No choreography, no music loud enough to matter, just two people swaying, his hand on my back, mine on his shoulder. And for the first time in a long time, I let someone hold me without flinching. Amanda called me one morning in tears. Ava had asked about her dad. "What did you say?" I asked. I told her that sometimes grown-ups make promises they don't know how to keep, but that doesn't mean we stop believing in promises. It just means we learn which ones matter most. I swallowed hard. "That's beautiful." She hugged me, Amanda said, and then asked for pancakes. We both laughed because life goes on, even when it hurts, even when it heals. I got a postcard a month later. No return address. Just 5 words written in tight, familiar handwriting. "I hope you're okay now." It was from Ethan, I knew it, but I didn't keep it. I threw it away because I was okay now. And I didn't need his hope to prove it. I started volunteering at a shelter on weekends. Nothing dramatic, just sorting donations, serving meals, chatting with people who'd been through worse storms than mine. It grounded me. Reminded me that pain isn't a competition, and that survival is always enough. Jude and I took a road trip in the fall, 2 hours up the coast. He let me pick the music. I let him drive. We stopped at a beach and watched the waves crash against the rocks. He turned to me and said, "You're not what happened to you, Claire." And I believed him, because I finally believed it myself. Starting over isn't loud. It's not a big speech or a viral post. It's small. It's planting herbs in your windowsill. It's taking a new route to work. It's deleting his playlist. It's saying yes to brunch even when you feel awkward. It's looking in the mirror and seeing someone you're proud of, not perfect, but whole. Ethan once told me I was too much. Too curious, too emotional, too intense. Jude tells me I'm exactly enough, and I tell myself the same thing now. Even on the days I don't quite believe it, especially on those days. Amanda's blog got picked up by a local magazine. She did a podcast interview. She was nervous as hell, but her voice didn't shake once. Afterward, she texted me, "I'm scared, but I'm showing up anyway." I replied, "That's what brave looks like." The truth is, beginnings are messy. They don't start with fireworks. They start with deep breaths, with trembling hands and hopeful eyes, with pain in your rearview mirror and grace in your passenger seat. They start when you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" They start with saying, "This isn't where I thought I'd be, but maybe it's where I'm supposed to begin." There's no perfect ending, no music swelling, no slow fade to black, just days. Quiet, ordinary days that don't hurt anymore. And that's how I knew I'd made it, not because something magical happened, but because I could finally exhale. It was a Sunday, sunlight through the window, coffee warming my palms, a book open unread because the moment was too soft to interrupt. Jude walked in wearing that ridiculous "eggs are my love language" apron and asked if I wanted waffles or French toast. I said both. He laughed, kissed the top of my head, and got to work. It wasn't a big moment, but it was mine. Amanda called later that morning. She'd gotten the publishing deal. Her blog had turned into a book proposal, and now a small press wanted to make it real. Her voice shook with disbelief. "You think people will actually read it?" I smiled. "They'll read it, they'll highlight it, they'll send it to their sisters, and they'll feel less alone because of you." She cried. I did too. Not because we were sad, but because we weren't anymore. Ava drew me a picture. Me, her, Amanda, and Jude in a park, everyone smiling. She gave me 3 arms because you're always doing a lot. I hung it on the fridge. It made me laugh every morning. It also reminded me who I'd become. Not the woman who'd been lied to, but the one who rose after. There are moments still when it sneaks in. The memory of Ethan's laugh. The feeling of waking up in that first 10 days, so full of hope and trust. The shock, the collapse, the grief, but I don't live there anymore. I visit sometimes, I acknowledge it. Then I come back to now, because now is better, now is real. I ran into him once. Ethan, at a farmer's market of all places, he was alone. We locked eyes. He didn't speak, just nodded. I nodded back and kept walking. My heart didn't race, my stomach didn't drop. It was like passing a ghost who no longer haunted me. Just a man, a chapter closed. Healing isn't a clean line. It zigzags, stalls, accelerates when you least expect it. Some days you feel invincible. Other days you hear an old song or smell a familiar cologne and your knees wobble. But you keep walking, because your life isn't back there anymore. It's here, in the plans you're making, in the people who choose you every single day, in the quiet pride of knowing you chose yourself first. I started writing too, nothing big, just small essays, snapshots of moments that felt like progress. The first time I danced without thinking. The first time I laughed so hard I cried. The first time I said, "I trust you," and meant it. I didn't write for revenge. I wrote for release, and maybe for legacy. So if anyone ever asked me, how did you survive that? I could say, not with rage, not with fire, but with grace, and a damn good therapist. Jude and I went camping for our 1-year anniversary. We built a fire, drank wine from paper cups, told stories under a sky so wide it made us feel small and safe at the same time. Before we fell asleep, he whispered, "I'm glad I found you." I didn't say, "Me too." I said, "I'm glad I found myself before you found me." Because I meant it, and he smiled like he understood. Amanda's book hit shelves in the spring. She signed my copy with, "To the woman who taught me that survival is contagious. Let's keep infecting the world." We had pancakes to celebrate. Ava spilled syrup everywhere. We didn't even care. It was perfect. If you're reading this hoping for a twist, I'm sorry. There's no final blow, no secret reveal, no dramatic confrontation. Just a woman who walked through fire and now smells like freedom instead of smoke. That's the real plot twist. Survival without bitterness. Love without fear. Peace that doesn't need performance. I used to think revenge was power. Now I think peace is, because it means they didn't keep your soul. They got your silence for a while, but not your story. You own that now. And what you build with it, that's the real masterpiece. My name is Claire. 10 days after I married Ethan, I discovered he had another family. But this isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about choosing the life that betrayal made possible. And I did. I chose it, brick by brick, day by day. Without permission, without apology, not to prove anything, just to be free. So if you're where I was, lost, blindsided, wondering how someone who said they loved you could lie so deeply, let me say this, you will survive. Not because you're unbreakable, but because you're rebuildable. And your new life, it won't look like the old one. It'll be quieter, stronger, built on truth, lit with light you made yourself. That's how we begin again. That's how we win.